Welcome everyone to Cynthia's Culinary Corner and Cooking with the Stars today. Also, I want to tell everyone a big hello at Happy Healthy Valley in the community. Today's a special segment because I'm collaborating with Cooking with the Stars, and we're going to be doing something really neat during this time of Lent. I'm going to be showing you a wonderful recipe that's easy and delicious, but most of all, the ingredients, each ingredient has a very special symbolic meaning. This is called Capirotada, which is also Mexican bread pudding. And I'm going to be sharing with you the ingredients and then putting it together. It's very easy. It's going to be like a simple lasagna because all you do is layer and then you pop it in the oven. So let's get started. I'm going to share with you some of the ingredients that we have here, and then I'll talk about the history of it. One of my great passions is nutritional anthropology. I love to learn about dishes, where they come from, the origin, the meaning, the culture, the people. It's all about tradition and history and how it gets passed down to family and friends. And what I like most of all is that you can tweak any recipe to what you like, to your flavors. And we're going to be discussing that and how we can incorporate all that together. So let's get started, okay? First of all, the Mexican bread pudding, what we call capirotada, you need to have bread. Now there's different types of breads. I prefer, this is called bolillo. It's a nice soft round bread. A lot of people use French bread. It's comparable to French bread. I really don't like to use sliced bread, but you can. The reason why I don't is because this has more body. It's a little bit thicker. So when you put that little syrup that we're going to be making, it's like a simple syrup with some special ingredients. It'll hold more and it'll absorb the flavor. And it'll give it a nice little bread pudding texture without being too soggy. So we're going to get some bread, the bread of choice. I like bolillo. We have raisins. We're going to have crushed pecans, walnuts. This recipe normally calls for peanuts. I'm not very fond of peanuts, but remember, it's what you like, not what I like. So you can put all of these nuts in, or you can change the nuts and exclude them if you want to. That's what I like about the diversity of making dishes. Coconut, cinnamon sticks, some clove, anise right here, and some piloncillo. I have to say that twice sometimes, but piloncillo is basically brown sugar with some spices. So I really like this because this has like different spices that gives it a little warmth to it, a little heat, and you don't have to add too much to it. Bananas gives it that nice sweet texture, and something extra that I'm going to do is I'm going to add pineapple. I like pineapple. You can add what you like, or you can leave it out. So now that you know about the ingredients, let me tell you what I do before I go into the history. I always like to toast my nuts in the oven at 350 for about 3 minutes. If you can, put them in there. After a minute, open it, swirl them around, close it. They should be done in about 3 to 4 minutes. Why do I like to toast the nuts? You don't have to, but it just comes out a little bit more nuttier. So the flavor is going to pop more. I recommend that, but you can do what you like, but that's a high suggestion that I have. So now that we have all the ingredients, now we're going to go into the history and the meaning. The Mexican bread pudding, la capirotada, came about in the 15th century from Spain. That's where it originated from. It came from a spiritual meaning during Lent. They wanted to make a dessert to celebrate during this time that did not have meat in it. So I'm going to share with you what it means. The bread represents the body of Christ, and the syrup that we're going to be making with the piloncillo and the cinnamon, you boil it, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Also with the cloves and the anise represents the blood of Christ. The cinnamon sticks represent the wood of the cross. The cloves represent the nails on the cross. And the anise represents the Star of David. I just feel that it's so enriching, everything. And I'll talk about the flavors, how they come together. But something that has a lot of meaning that I really like the most of all is the cheese. Now, when I prepare this dish for you all, we're going to top it with the cheese. And then we put it in the oven and we let it just melt and then we take it out. But do you know what the cheese represents? The cheese represents the cloth that was covered when Jesus came off the cross. They covered him and then they put him in the tomb. And that's what the meaning of Capirotada means. It's very symbolic. It's very easy, very delicious. And I think there's a lot of history and richness to it to add to this time that we're in. So why don't we get started? I'm going to show you how to prepare it and layer it. And let's have some fun. You see how easy that was? So now I'm going to talk to you about some of the ingredients that I didn't mention because I love flavor. The spices, I didn't mention that. Anise. Anise is really interesting because it has like a licorice taste, a licorice flavor, and it has that heat and that warm element that's added in the mixture with the cinnamon and the piloncillo, which is brown sugar, also known as panela. So that's really interesting. And the clove itself is also sweet but warm. So when you add all these different spices together, it gives it a nice little sweet balance of heat and warmth and a little boldness, but it's not too much. It's just perfect. So I wanted to mention that before we wrap up soon. And something else I love to mention. I know I mentioned earlier that this dish came from Spain, but we have to also remember the beauty of the tradition of foods and dishes where they come from. They're incorporated with previous cultures a lot of times in other areas. So a lot of the Spaniards, a lot of the elements that are here are a tradition from the Moorish area, the Moors, which is the northern eastern tip of Africa. And as they went into Spain, you just incorporated all these wonderful flavors and elements together. And that's why, again, I feel that it's just so important to add your touch of what you like for your flavor and your family and what you all enjoy. And in wrapping up and closing, if you are diabetic, whether you're diabetic or not, but especially if you are, it's all about portion control. As you might be a little bit, questioning or worried about maybe the brown sugar that we used. But if you notice, I only used about 1/4 of a cup in that pan that had a little bit of the brown sugar. It had some cinnamon, but it had more of the spices than anything else. So if you limit yourself and you can tweak and tailor what you're adding, then you'll be fine, because you don't necessarily have to add the banana or the pineapple. You can add the nuts and a little bit of everything else, or just limit the amount of fruit that you add in there. You can also add different types of dried fruit. You can add apricot or even green apples, which are very low in sugar. I've mentioned that before in one of my other videos. It has a low glycemic index. So tailor it to your needs. But remember, it's all about enjoying your meal and portion control and being healthy. So thank you again. And I have to always end with a voila, and we'll see you soon.